Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Professional Winter Conservation Strategies for Outdoor Heritage Assets webinar. My name's James, and I'm the Business Development Manager for the Heritage Network. And just to give a little bit of a background about the Heritage Network before we move on to Cliveden Conservation's presentation and webinar, we're the umbrella network for organisations, not-for-profits, local authorities, and businesses supporting the sector that are rescuing, restoring, and reusing historic buildings and places across the UK. We currently have over 1,000 members, and amongst many other activities, we manage a variety of training, development, and networking sessions to build knowledge and confidence within the sector, equipping our participants with more autonomy and real-world ideas to take back to their place of work. So this is the first of one of our partner members' webinar presentations. And today I'm thrilled to be joined by Lewis Proudfoot from Cliveden Conservation, who's going to talk you through protecting outdoor garden statuary through winter.
Okay.
Please, if you have, sorry, just before, if you have any questions, please feel free to add them to the chat box, and we'll cover them at the end. Similarly, if you want to ask Lewis any questions directly, please wait until the end of the presentation, and we will go through them then. So without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to hand over to Lewis.
Thanks, James. Sorry for cutting across you then.
No problem.
Hello, everybody. And yeah, welcome to this first webinar that we're running in collaboration with the Heritage Network. My name's Lewis Proudfoot. I'm the Managing Director of Cliveden Conservation, and we've been partner members for a few years now, supporting the network. It's a wonderful organisation. I'd urge you to visit the website and see what's on offer. Lots of communities to get involved in, and plenty of advice and guidance on offer. heritagetrustnetwork.org.uk. And if you're not a member, I'd urge you to sign up. So this webinar is aimed at anyone who is responsible for caring for outdoor statuary and other heritage assets. The aim, we hope, is to inform you about some of the challenges that we all face in caring for these historic objects, and to provide you with some advice and tips for managing and maintaining them through the winter months. At Cliveden, we often talk about best practice, and so our aim here is to inform best practice for your objects, but also for you and your organisations, because a long-term proactive rather than reactive approach to caring for your objects not only looks after them, but it will save you time and ultimately money in the long run. So before I go on to the main presentation, I thought I'd put a slide in just to introduce Cliveden. For anyone who doesn't know, we were originally founded in the 80s as the National Trust's statuary workshop to look after their sculpture collections for their various estates. We are set up here in the woods at Cliveden, where we have a busy workshop, and we pride ourselves on keeping practical work at the centre of our business. That was the 80s. By 1990, the opportunities to work with other customers and organisations led to the founding of the company as we are today. So we are independent for the National Trust, but we have a very long-standing and collaborative relationship with them, and now with many other heritage organisations. We have 3 regional workshops in Somerset, East Anglia, and here in Buckinghamshire. And as a company, we operate as main or principal contractor, specialist subcontractor, and we can work directly with customers on projects that range from condition surveys and reports and small repair projects right up to large National Lottery heritage funded major projects, such as the one we're currently underway in up in Nottingham Cathedral, called Restoring Pugin. And over the years, we have conserved, we've repaired, replicated, moved numerous sculptures, statues, and other decorative objects. And so this presentation is born out of our 35+ years of expertise in this area, as well as in other realms of heritage conservation and the repair work that we do. So the focus of this presentation is on outdoor statuary and sculpture. So here we're talking about standalone objects, like this statue here on the slide. Materials such as marble, stone, terracotta, and cast concrete, But the learnings and the approaches that we're going to talk about can be applied to all sorts of exterior stonework and other related materials, and also timber and metal, because everything is affected in some way by winter weather. Key threats, as anybody who has to care for, maintain buildings, historic buildings, or indeed outdoor statues and sculpture, will know that water is the key threat. And moisture penetration and saturation of materials is the real challenge, because it makes them then vulnerable to the destructive mechanisms of freeze-thaw cycles, wetting and drying cycles, and more susceptible to temperature fluctuations and the damage that comes around because of these things. And as we all know, our climate's warming. We're experiencing much higher rainfall as a result. I think our winters are 16% wetter since 2015 than previous years. And so the challenge we all have is managing water ingress and ensuring our buildings and objects, importantly, can withstand the increased levels of rainfall and moisture. And the aim of winter protection and maintenance is to extend the lifespan of your objects, avoid their deterioration, and ultimately avoid costly repairs, because the cost of proactive ongoing maintenance is much less than reactive major projects when the damage has already been caused. So the freeze-thaw cycle is sort of I guess, the most well-known agent of decay. Here's a slide just to sort of set it out quite simply. Expanding ice widens existing pores and cracks, and indeed it creates new micro cracks. When that ice melts, the moisture re-enters the now wider fissures and cracks, and then the whole thing starts again, and can occur dozens of times each season. The repetitive nature of this progressively enlarges them, and ultimately leads to surface damage, spalling, flaking, detachment of material, and eventually material loss. And there is a sixth stage, really, which is the drying phase, because when moisture evaporates, it leaves salt crystals on the surface of the material, whether it's marble or stone. And they cause damage when they are rehydrated, when they get wet again, because they expand. And here we have three examples of deterioration. That top left, number one, is it's a bit of a bad picture actually, but it's an example of sugaring. So where you get this surface damage caused by freezing, which causes the individual calcite grains in marble to break down and loosening the grains, or also salt crystallization, where salt crystals left on the surface rehydrate and expand. That's where you get that sort of powdery surface. And the other two are slightly more obvious, where you can see spalling in the middle, number two, and number three is sort of damage to some carved detail on a limestone sculpture there. And the point about these two examples is that once that damage has occurred, you're then opening up the material to further deterioration, whether it's ongoing wetting and drying or freezing and thawing, but also biological and microbial growth and activity, because that type of surface is a great environment for mosses and lichens to take hold. So this kind of deterioration is cumulative and it's exponential. And if it's not addressed in good time, then the damage can continue and go further. One of the specific challenges that we face is around fountains and objects that are constantly saturated in water. Not only are they difficult to access because they're often in the middle of a pond, and therefore they're hard to treat, they're difficult to conserve, to survey even, to repair and to cover if winter covers is a solution. But because they've been saturated throughout the year, even when you've turned off the fountains and drained the ponds, the exposure to winter weather continues to cause problems to already vulnerable objects. So this is a job we did recently at Waddesdon Manor, where we undertook a range of interventions to this marble fountain. It started with a survey where we identified the problems, specified the various interventions that we were going to undertake, which included grouting, open joints, mortar repairs to fill cracks and gaps, and importantly to fill water traps so that we were avoiding water collecting in places. It was cleaned, and then we designed and we installed winter covers to protect it going forward. And that's the point really for this, is we repaired the damage, but we also future-proofed the structure to better withstand the winter weather in the future. This is the completed fountain. One of the things we did was we completely overhauled the fountain system, so the jets, the plumbing, and all the drainage, so that it could once again look like it was intended. So the next few slides are going to take you through this proactive maintenance strategy that you can all do yourselves to deal with the sort of decay that we've just been speaking about. So we'll start with talking about inspections and monitoring, and then there's a few slides on the maintenance part of this, cleaning and landscape management, and then finally there's a few slides on protective covers, which are a great way to keep the worst of the winter weather away from the sculpture. So regular inspections are really important. If you're regularly checking your objects for damage and you keep a photographic record for comparison, you will be able to monitor the statues and the sculpture for deterioration and damage, and then take action to repair and conserve and protect it before the exponential damage occurs. If you notice these sorts of issues, then you can plan your interventions accordingly before it's too late. So the things you're looking out for are new cracks, new fissures, existing ones that are changing and getting wider or bigger, and changes to the surface conditions. So that sugaring that we talked about, loss of definition, and loss of sort of carved and deep and sharp edges as materials deteriorate. Spring cleaning is a really great way of doing that assessment and monitoring, because it enables you to assess the condition and identify issues as you go through it. This image is taken from a course we ran with the local church, with the volunteers there, giving them some hands-on experience on how to care for the stonework in their churchyard. You don't have to use tiny toothbrushes. You can use larger brushes, as long as they're soft, natural bristle brushes, nothing too abrasive, no metal brushes or anything like that. The aim is to remove plant growth and biological soiling before any of it takes hold. You can remove bird droppings, which are corrosive, and obviously cleaning improves the appearance of stonework greatly. A few things to watch out for: obviously, use only clean water, careful brushing, and if in doubt, always do a trial area somewhere out of sight, somewhere not too obvious, so just to see how the material reacts to your cleaning. Landscape management is a really effective and easy way to maintain and look after your objects. Plant growth within statuary, as in buildings, does pose a real risk to the condition. Obviously, this image here is a building, it's not a statue, but woody plants such as buddleia can cause real damage with their root systems. But even if you don't have plant growth on or in your sculpture, even keeping vegetation around the objects is really important, because if it's left to grow You can create a microclimate. It can trap moisture in, prevents air circulation, produces leaves that can gather and keep trapped moisture onto the surface of your objects, and even root systems can undermine and cause misalignment to the structures. Another point on this is if you have stone urns or planters, or cast concrete urns and planters, and they're not lined, always remove the soil before winter, because it will act in the same way. If it freezes and thaws, it will expand, and it will hold moisture, I guess, like a poultice, hold moisture onto the stone, which can then be subject to freezing conditions. So always remove the soil before winter, and consider introducing liners. They don't have to be lead. They could be fiberglass, be other materials to fit the specific objects that you've got. And if through your own light cleaning and inspection, you notice issues and defects that are perhaps too complex or challenging to deal with yourselves, then now might be the time to call in the experts. Other conservation companies are available, of course, but Cliveden can work with you to develop maintenance and repair strategies to suit your time frame, budgets, and fundraising activities. It's always best to ask and discuss the issues. Sometimes the most appropriate intervention isn't obvious, and nor is it always the most expensive. And never undertake work you are unsure about. Always consider listings, faculties, if your objects are within a church, and other planning consents that may need to be considered when undertaking any work to historic objects. So the fifth element of this proactive maintenance strategy is protective covers. So winter covers, or Cliveden's winter covers, are a protective three-layered system that we have developed over many years of conserving and repairing outdoor garden statuary. They're essentially sleeping bags for statues. They're bespoke, made to measure, and they're made to fit the specific shape and size of your object. They come with straps and fixings to ensure a secure fit. Larger covers come in sections to make installation straightforward and manageable, so you can do it yourself or with your own in-house teams. And they're cost effective because by covering your sculpture, you are drastically reducing the risk of damage through the various decay mechanisms we've just been talking about. The three-layered system comprises of a waterproof outer layer, an insulating mid layer, and a neutral breathable inner layer. And we found over the years that the insulative materials in our covers maintain a much more stable microclimate. They reduce the fluctuations in temperature that we've spoken about that can be damaging, including freeze-thaw cycles. And by preventing water ingress and shielding the surface of the statue from direct sunlight, they reduce the chances of wetting and drying cycles that we know causes damage. They also allow air circulation, and they prevent biological growth under the cover. Sometimes when you have seen other covers that have been used, when they come off, the sculptures are sort of green because they've got this algae that's growing on it. Our covers don't cause that. We can build in vents and other additions for specific cases. We've produced covers for much larger structures and included ventilation to ensure that internal microclimate is as stable as possible. But the main point with these is that by reducing the amount of moisture that's on the material, you're reducing the opportunity for those damaging cycles of freeze thaw and wetting and drying, and it stops them causing the damage. Covers come in all shapes and sizes. These are some for Waddesdon, made bespoke to fit the fountain. We have also covered other structures and objects from small buildings to we're doing a project with English Heritage at the moment to cover historic floor tiles that are exposed during the winter. And depending on the situation and the circumstance, we can produce different covers that are most suitable and appropriate. A reminder of the materials that we can cover: stone, marble, terracotta, cast concrete. Cast concrete often contains iron armatures that can rust and expand. So it's another thing, another reason to ensure that if you've got a deteriorated sculpture which may have cracks in it and allowing moisture to penetrate, that type of damage from rusting fixtures and fittings can be more prevalent. So worth considering that if you're, and even iron dowels and pins and things like that. So there are the covers, and in the background you can see some more standard ones for statues as well. So 4 key takeaways from this talk, hopefully. Number 1 is about treating your outdoor statuary and decorative objects as part of the living landscape, as you would maintain your garden. You know, they respond to seasonal changes and climate change, and you have to consider them within that environment. Second point is to conserve and maintain them, undertake practical intervention to slow deterioration and preserve historic integrity and the aesthetic value of your objects. Number 3 is about creating a long-term strategy of monitoring and preventative care, the cleaning and maintenance, as that will be far better than costly reactive repairs when things do go wrong. And finally, think about prioritizing items within your collection. Consider using protective winter covers for high value pieces, perhaps, or objects with known structural vulnerabilities, or those that are valuable and irreplaceable. And the other thing to consider on this point is if sculpture is particularly fragile or vulnerable, consider moving it inside and either replicating it, reproducing it in some way, and replacing the fragile piece with a newer, more robust copy outside. So, final slide. We'd love to hear from you. We regularly work with estates to manage their statuary collections, both their internal and their external collections. We create and oversee maintenance and collection care strategies, as well as undertaking a wide range of conservation and practical repair work. We'd love to work with you to look after your collection, so do get in touch at the end of this talk. So thanks very much, and I believe James is going to speak up with any questions that may have come in through the chat.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Lewis. It's really fantastic talk and great to see the PPM strategies that you're putting in place as part of your conservation works. So we've got a couple of questions in. First up is from Fiona Caldwell. Would you expect to put winter covers on now or wait until winter fully sets in?
One of the key considerations is you want to be putting a winter cover on a dry object. So as the winter evolves, the chances for doing that become fewer. So I think we say sort of from November time is a good time to think about covering your sculpture. I think we sort of know anecdotally that the colder weather is often after December, but I think things are changing at the moment over the last few years, in fact, and it's not so much freezing conditions as wet weather, which is the challenge. So I think November would be a good time to put them on.
Fantastic. And another question from Anchi, which is, thanks very much, Lewis. Would the winter cover allow for lime mortar repairs to be carried out outdoors to small buildings or sculptures during winter?
Do you mean, could you undertake mortar repairs and then use a cover to protect it? I think you probably could. I think it depending what binder you're using. Tending it would be the key thing, and allowing the lime to carbonate. But I don't see why not. It's insulating, and it does allow air to circulate. If you're using hot lime, you could probably look at that. Yeah, I think there's always the risk. I mean, the thing to say is, if you have sustained freezing weather, no winter cover is going to prevent that temperature affecting the stone or the marble. So what it does is it keeps that fluctuation much more steady, but ultimately it will get through. So like any other form of insulation, when you're thinking about mortar work over the winter, you've got to be really careful and tend it and make sure that you're not getting the frost on your mortar.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lewis. So next up, we've got Robin Newman Boffey. What would be an approximate cost for a winter cover, for example, for a life-size figure?
Good question, Robin. It depends, is the answer. It depends on the site. I know you said life size, complexity. I'd say get in touch, and we can speak to you about it. But we're probably talking about from £800 to £1,200. Don't quote me on that.
Thanks, Lewis. And on to, oh no, we've got a couple more questions to go. This is from Eileen McCamley. Is it beneficial to keep objects off the ground if possible to avoid the moisture ingress?
Yes. Think we often have this. This is a consideration. If a sculpture is literally in contact with the ground, even soil or earth, then you will always be getting moisture coming up from the ground, and it will be much harder to keep it dry. So even like something like a slate pad or something to stop moisture ingress, but I think thinking about putting it on a pedestal or something to keep it off the ground is always a really good tactic to avoid that moisture ingress over the winter.
And just on to our final question in the chat, which is from HB. What can be done about damp stonework when it comes to time to cover? Does this need to be done after a period of dry weather, or is it better late than never? I think you've slightly touched on this before.
Yeah, better late than never. Absolutely. I mean, it is always better to put it on a dry sculpture, because by covering it, you're going to prevent that evaporation and drying. It will happen over time, but you'll be trapping moisture within the sculpture. I mean, having a cover will definitely protect it from those fluctuations. It'll keep bright sunlight off it on a sunny day, and it will sort of slow the freezing conditions if you get that at night. So definitely better late than never. Choose a sunny day to put it on, I'd say.
Fantastic. Well, that brings us to the end of the questions posed in the chat. Has any of the attendees on the call got a question they'd like to ask Lewis directly before we wrap things up? I will take the silence as no, and I will just pass on my thanks to Lewis for a really fantastic presentation. Oh, sorry, one last has come through from Amanda Sutherland. Please, could you unmute yourself, Amanda?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Sorry, quick question for Lewis then. Are the types of your covers based upon the type of stone that you're covering up?
No, they're not. They're the standard cover, which are generally the pictures we've been showing, are one type of material and fabric. We can use different materials, different fabrics For example, if we're covering a much larger object, or we decide that perhaps insulation isn't the key factor here, it might be it's just to keep rain off a larger area or something like that. But no, we don't fit the cover to the material type.
Okay, thanks.
Fab. And sorry, one more question that has come through the chat just before we wrap things up. How long do the covers last, Lewis, and are they UV stable?
Yeah, good question. Both of those questions. So, how long do they last? The most amount of damage that we find with our covers is through poor storage. So, because of the fabric, it's insulative. Rodents like it, mice and things like that. So if they're stored in a shed or somewhere somewhere that is accessible, then sometimes we find that they've been nibbled, and occasionally, that is a problem. They can last, we say, up to 10 years or more, depending on how they're looked after. The UV stable question is a good one. They do the current outer material, and we're actually exploring a different material. There's a balance here, obviously, in trying to keep costs down as well as making them long lasting. And they do tend to fade a little bit, but the other point is UV levels are lower during winter, so that does give them a bit more long life. I'd say they're stable, but you see a bit of fading after, say, after a few years. But if they're looked after well, stored properly, and cared for, then they can last you a long time.
Thank you very much, Lewis. That's it's been eye-opening and hopefully informative for all of our attendees. And we will be circulating this recording in due course to anyone that has basically attended today. And it'll also form one of our resources on our toolkit, which is our members-only platform on the Heritage Network website. But yeah, thank you very much, Lewis. And thanks everyone for attending.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Cheers.
Cheers.